Alright guys, so today we're going to show you how to do a water change on an aquarium. Because everybody wants an aquarium that looks that good. I'll tell you what, it took me a long time to get it this way. So I will show you what I do. First of all, you're going to want to get yourself a 5-gallon bucket or a couple of 5-gallon buckets. And you're going to want to, when they're brand new, clean them out with some dish soap, some Dawn or whatever you have. Make sure all the oil's off of them. And then once they're cleaned thoroughly, you can fill them up with your tap water, and you want to use a dechlorinator depending on where you live. Some places you don't, but I would recommend to use a dechlorinator. And you want to make sure you match your water parameters in your tank, your GH, your KH, and your pH if you can. If it's a species that requires hard water, then you're definitely going to want to do that. If not, if it's a fish only tank and you're a beginner, your tap water is probably just fine. So once you do that, and you fill up your buckets and you put your dechlorinator in, you want to let them sit. You want to let the water warm up to room temperature, and you also want to give the dechlorinator time to work. I usually leave mine overnight. I've never had a problem doing it, so that's what you want to do. I'd recommend doing a 50% water change if you're going to match your water parameters, or a 20% water change if you're not going to. You don't want to shock the fish. You want to simply replace the water with cleaner water. You want to take some of the organics out, like fish poop and fish waste and decaying things. So once you have that and you've waited overnight, what you're going to want to do is drain probably about a good 5 gallons out of your tank, depending on how big it is. You just want to get the water level down to somewhere around here so that you can get your hands in there and you can clean without splashing the water out, because that can be very messy. You want to make sure that you also unplug your spray bar if you have a filter, or your heater. If the water level gets below your heater, it will crack, which could cause electrocution. That's not very fun. Plus, those E-Heims are expensive, and nobody could afford to spend $40 every time they do a water change and get electrocuted. So, you're going to want to do that. Unplug your stuff. After that's done, you will definitely need to scrape algae. I don't care how good you are at this, you're going to have algae on your tank. Everybody is. It's just one of the most basic forms of life, so it will just occur. To do this, you're going to want to get yourself some razor blades, and not the straight ones. I prefer these ones because they're thicker metal and they have a point which allows you to get in close to the edges. And you're just going to want to go on the inside of the tank, and you're going to want to scrape the algae off if you have a glass tank. If you have an acrylic tank, don't do this. You're going to scratch your glass. You're going to just have to use a scrub pad for that. But once you go around the tank and get all the algae off, what you're going to want to do is get yourself some non-scratch Scotch-Brite pads. I prefer these. A filter pad works too. I've used that in the past. And you're going to want to go on the inside of the tank, and you're going to want to scrub the rest of the algae off with this. This will get pretty much everything off. And by that point, your glass should be clean. You can use a toothbrush to scrub the algae off of plants. It won't hurt the plants. Or also some of the rock in here, you could use a toothbrush for that too. It gets in there and it gets it out. So once you do that, you're going to want to trim plants if you have them. Now, for trimming plants, you could just go and get yourself some scissors, make sure you wash them off, get all the oil off of them. Or, I just like to use my fingers for stem plants. You just pinch the stem and pull it. It'll come right up, no problem. Once you trim your plants, you're going to want to get all of the excess floating debris out. So your plant trimmings, you're going to want to get out your old leaves, any old food, or anything that's floating around the tank that's not supposed to be there. You're going to want to get that out. You could use a net for that. You want to just go around and scoop. Be careful not to scoop up any of your livestock. Sometimes these guys reproduce and there are babies, and you don't want to do that because, well, they're babies. Raise them and maybe you can make a couple bucks at the pet store. So, once all that's done, your water level should still be at that 5-gallon point. And if you're going to drain more water, like I would drain a 50% water change, which would be about halfway, the water level will be more down here because a lot of this takes up the volume. And what you're going to want to do is get yourself a gravel bag, and you're going to want to go around and suck all the detritus and old food out of the gravel. And also, you could use this to suck up all of your excess floating debris. It doesn't matter how much you clean, there will still be dead leaves in this tank, especially. Suck that all up and get it all out, and after that, you're going to want to start filling. After you get all of your water out, once you get your 15 gallons out of this tank, you will start filling it up. Now, when you fill it up, you want to do so slowly. I would recommend to get a pump from Harbor Freight. It's just easier than trying to lift 5 gallons of water up and dump it up in the top without spilling it all over your expensive light fixtures and getting your carpet wet and stinky. So, I would recommend to do that. It took me a couple of years before I started doing that. But you fill it up slowly because you don't want to shock the fish. You don't want an extreme water change, or if your water parameters aren't right, you don't want to shock them. You don't want to change anything really quick. That's not good for them. It stresses them out, and it could cause them to get sick. So once this thing is filled up, you should probably test your water parameters again. GH, KH, pH test kit. Make sure, you should regularly be testing for other things like nitrates in your organics to get a schedule so you know when to change your water and when to do maintenance in order to keep it balanced, because that's important. A balanced tank is a happy tank. So once you do that, you want to make sure you top off. For me, I like to top off above my rim here, just at the top, because I'm gone all week and the water will evaporate out of the top. No big deal. Don't worry about it. You want to plug your heater back in. You don't want to forget about that. You don't want your fish to freeze. And you also want to turn your circulation pumps back on and your filters, because you want surface agitation in here. It helps force oxygen into the water and keeps the fish happy and alive. Once that's done, you can just sit back and enjoy. Alright.